Hey guys, it's Melissa. Welcome back to my channel. Today is day 7 of our 21 days of gratitude. 1 week down, 2 more to go. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I hope you consider joining my community of muses by subscribing and tapping that little bell. In order to close out the first week of gratitude, I wanted to discuss a moment that I am grateful for. This moment took place during my last year of pharmacy school while I was on clinical rotations. While on this particular rotation, I was responsible for providing anticoagulation medication counseling as well as monitoring for patients who were getting knee or hip replacement procedures. Also, prior to the patients getting the surgery, I would interview them in order to get an idea of their typical diet, physical activity level, as well as their medical history, just to make sure that we knew what we were working with. In addition, I was responsible for timing their anticoagulation therapy in relationship to the actual orthopedic procedure that they were getting. One patient in particular, I can tell based off of that initial interview, when I was gathering information about her health history and her lifestyle, I can tell that she took her health very seriously. She led, for the most part, a very healthy lifestyle. She was very physically active. Something that she said did give me pause, and that was that she ate a lot of kale. In addition to that, she also took vitamin K supplements. Right off the bat, it's a little odd hearing about people taking vitamin K supplements. It's just not one of those vitamins or minerals that you normally see people take a specific supplement for, although I do see it out in clinical practice now, but like a regular layman's person wouldn't necessarily be just taking that out of the blue, you know? And for those of you that don't know, kale, when it comes to the leafy green vegetables, kale is one of those leafy greens that have like the highest amount of vitamin K in it compared to some of the other leafy green vegetables. The reason why this sort of set off some alarms for me was because the anticoagulation medication we would eventually discharge the patient home on was Coumadin. The generic name is warfarin. And if you're someone who's never been on warfarin, also known as Coumadin, it is a blood thinner. The class of that medication, this is me putting on my pharmacist hat, it is a vitamin K antagonist. We actually need vitamin K in order to produce our clotting factors. So the way that warfarin works, because it's a vitamin K antagonist, it basically thins out your blood by inhibiting parts of that pathway. So anyway, I say all of that mumbo jumbo to say vitamin K, like for instance, if you have a patient that is taking warfarin and they're suffering from a bleed and they get admitted to the hospital, we actually give patients vitamin K in order to negate or reverse the effects of warfarin in the hopes to stop the bleeding. Now, here's a patient getting an orthopedic procedure, knee and or hip replacement surgery. There's a higher risk of people getting blood clots when it comes to procedures along those lines. Your body is in a more inflamed state. It's also in a more hypercoagulable state. It's just more likely to clot. Given what I said about how warfarin works and how we use vitamin K to reverse warfarin, you can see how red flags started to pop up in my head. So I explained to her while she was taking the warfarin to avoid taking her vitamin K supplement. She wasn't someone who had a history of blood clots, so she would be on anticoagulation for a very short period of time. And I also said that you can go ahead and eat leafy green vegetables. I understand that that is a very important part of your diet. I only ask for the time being that you hold off on kale in particular, because of X, Y, and Z, but to also keep your intake of your leafy green vegetables consistent. Because, you know, other leafy green vegetables too have vitamin K in it, but as long as you keep it a consistent amount that you're ingesting, then whoever it is that's managing your anticoagulation can account for it as they are monitoring you. Another thing to keep in mind, vitamin K is a fat-soluble vitamin. It lingers in your body a lot longer than, let's say, your B vitamins that are water-soluble. That was another thing that I was keeping in mind. This is a person that's been eating a lot of vitamin K, so maybe when it comes to her anticoagulation therapy, we might have to start her off a bit more aggressively than we would have started off someone else that was healthy in her age but didn't have that history. So anyway, the procedure came and went. She got released home shortly thereafter. Pretty standard. About 1 or 2 days later, I called to do a follow-up with her to make sure that she was okay, to answer any questions that she may have, to make sure that her follow-up appointments were all good, you know, etc., etc. At first, everything sounded ordinary until she mentioned that she had been having a little bit of difficulty tidying up her home. So that kind of made me concerned a bit. Why could she be having shortness of breath? So I decided to probe a little further and ask more questions about her symptoms, including the timing of the symptoms. As she was providing the answers, I was thinking to myself, oh my God, I think this woman is experiencing a PE. And for those of you that don't know, PE means pulmonary embolism. It's basically a blood clot in your lung. Hence why you will experience symptoms of shortness of breath or difficulty breathing. Now, mind you, I was a student at the time. I had not yet developed the confidence that I have today as a healthcare provider. I didn't want to cause her any unnecessary distress, but at the same time, I wanted to convey to her sort of the urgency of the matter. It was something that was urgent and should be looked into, given that she just recently had the procedure. So I explained to her that right after we were done speaking on the phone, because our follow-up appointments were on the phone, to call her doctor immediately. She originally had like a follow-up appointment, I think the following day or 2 days later, but I said instead of waiting for tomorrow or the day after, call the office, see if you can be seen today, and explain to them the symptoms that you're experiencing. She sounded very calm, very coherent on the phone, and we were both able to communicate what needed to be communicated. After the call was over, I explained to my preceptor what was going on, and she reaffirmed that I did the right thing. So you know, that day was over, I went home. Well, apparently the patient did exactly what I told her, because the next day that I went back into my rotation, I was informed by my preceptor that that same patient was admitted by her doctor to our hospital that past evening for PE, and she ended up being diagnosed with PE. All I can say is, in that moment, despite the seriousness of it, despite the uncertainty that I had, despite how scared I was feeling in that moment when I was kind of realizing what was going on, I was able to recognize the situation for what it was and potentially prevent something that could have been fatal. I basically did what I was being trained to do and ended up saving a life. And for that, I am grateful. Now that I've told you guys about a particular moment in my life that was both a bit frightful, but at the end of the day, very meaningful, feel free to share down below a moment that you are grateful for.